Welcome back to Parks Place Podcast. Back at it again, back at it again. Hey, this is episode 5, everybody. I want to do something a little different today, the topic wise. It's still in law enforcement, um, but it's going to be away from policing. What I want to do today is go back to when I worked in corrections. And so today's episode is what it's like to work in corrections. This one's life inside the walls. And this is going to be dealing with my time on Texas death row, my death row experience. Um, so I'm going to take inside the walls of the unit that I worked at when I worked in corrections, and it was Ellis One unit. Let me kind of backtrack just a little bit. I don't want to go too far back, but what got me to corrections, I was getting ready to get out of the Army back in '94, and I had a dear friend of mine, Miss Merle Captain, who I where I grew up. She was a great mentor to me. But anyway, when I was deciding to get out, she had a contact that worked for the state of Texas in the criminal justice division, and she had informed me, "Hey, when I'm ready to get out, to let her know." I already knew I was trying to go to Sam Houston State University. I was trying to major in criminal justice, and when I was getting ready to get out of the Army, uh, my thing was when I knew I was going into corrections, if I could have been a warden, if I could achieve the rank of warden, I probably would have probably still be there by now. But that's what I just kind of want to preface that with. So I had some help getting there in the process of being hired on, and I'll kind of get to that in a sec. So basically, in corrections, you have some people that just don't want to be a police officer, kind of like me initially, but they want to be in the criminal justice field. It can be various reasons why people want to get into corrections. Maybe they might live in a rural area, and maybe that job is the only thing that's providing some form of decent income and benefits wherever they live. But for me, I was just when I was getting out, I needed to have a job when I got out of the army. I knew I was going to Sam Houston State, and I knew I would have been corrections. So that was my motivation for doing that, and I had a person that could get me in. Now, in saying all of that, if you've ever thought about getting into the correctional field, if you're in the correctional field, or if you're in somebody's academy right now, this might be for you. And I'm just going to give kind of like a general overview uh, of what it's like, being a correctional officer, getting in, and then just certain things. Um, so, what is if you're looking at this as trying as a profession to get into, or you're just curious about what correctional officers do? You may have heard a lot about them. You may see some stuff on TV or whatever the case may be, and you just want to know from someone that actually worked the position. So, what is the role of a correctional officer? Now, I'll also be using the term CO because you're also called a CO. They cut it down to shorten it down a little bit. Now, what is the difference between the jail versus the prison environments? Being a police officer and having taken people to jail, which is like your respective county, wherever you are, with that, you have all people from walks of life, public and people that's, bug around here, people that might be arrested for public intoxication or minor offenses, traffic tickets, whatever the case may be. And you do have people there that are maybe they committed an aggravated robbery, aggravated assault, simple assault type stuff. They were just booked in, and then they're released, and then they'll, if they're a first time offender, they may get probation, this, that, and the other, give them a second chance. And then you also have the ones that are housed that, have committed heinous crimes, murder, this, that, and the other, or it's their second, third time around on other cases. And now the judge has sentenced them to go to prison. So the jail is, it houses everybody, but also first time offenders, and they also get that second chance. Prison is when someone has truly been convicted of a crime and been sentenced to, for me, the Texas Department of Corrections and wherever you're at, your respective state penal institution. So that's the difference. And then so you do and when and with prison, they've been convicted of a crime and they've been given a certain amount of time to serve while in prison before they're eligible for parole. So it can be anywhere from 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or life. And then if it's the death penalty, then they've been sentenced to death. Um, so what is it that a correction officer does daily basis? What are the job duties of a SEAL, a correction officer? First and foremost is supervision. You're supervising the inmates that are incarcerated. So that's who you're supervising. You're supervising the inmates. And one thing that you will do, and it depends on what type of unit you're at. When I hired on in 94, they had the old style prisons, which the unit that I worked at, it was an old style prison. And then they start bringing the pod type units on. So, what are the old type units? What do they look like? Basically, they were called a telephone pole type units. So, when you walk and get into the unit, it's one long hallway, and all the cell blocks come off of the pole, if so to speak. Um, and most of the cell blocks are there. So, what are you responsible for as a correctional officer? First and foremost, the supervision of the inmates, and then inmate counts as one. So I'm gonna have to work with the unit that I came from, which is the telephone pole type unit. And basically, what it is, it was the big key. Put the key in the door, open it up, and you walk in, and then somebody locks you inside the cell block. I can only speak for um, the unit that I worked at and me working on death row. So in Texas, it was a three-tier system. Basically, what it was, when you walk in, you have the first floor, you go up to a second floor, and then you had a third floor um, full of inmates. And then death row also had what they called a work capable unit, where they can come in and out of the cell every 30 minutes, if I remember correctly. But I think it was every 30 minutes. Um, and so you're you're doing inmate counts. And so what on the old style unit that I had, especially with me, it was a little easier because they were pretty much on lockdown. So when it's count time, you go down the first row, you count every inmate to make sure that they're in their cell. You go to the second row, third row, and you do the count. And then also, if you have anybody that's in recreation on that particular wing, you're also accountable to them. Um, and so you do that. You also do searches. Like on death row, they only came out to rec 1 hour out of the day. So you take them out of their cell, and then you're going to search them. And then when they come out of the day room, you're going to search them. If they're going out, if you got to take them to the infirmary or somewhere outside of the cell block, you're going to search them. So you're searching inmates pretty much all day. That's the best way to try. Anytime they move, you're going to search them. They come back from somewhere, they're going to get searched. And then there's movement control. When I was on death row, normally it was two correctional officers, two COs would be escorting a death row inmate, let's just say, to the infirmary, because we fed them on the wing where they live. So movement control, once they come off the wing, then you have to adjust the count. And then of that particular thing, and then you let the one that's running the cells, let them know, hey, I'm taking this inmate to such and such place. And the unit that I worked at, Ellis One, it was the old style type unit where the guy had to crank the cell, and then all the all the cell doors were open, or we can do it to specific uh, cells, either one, or if we need to get two inmates out, then we can just do those particular cells. Now, the so what do you if you're thinking about getting into this particular type profession, you probably want to know, what are the shifts? What's the shift structure? Well, when I worked there, the shift structure was an 8-hour shift. They may have gone to some 10 and 12-hour shifts. I'm not sure, but when I was there, it was an 8-hour shift, and we worked on what we call cards. I think it was an A card, B card, C card, something like that, just for argument's sake. And basically, your days off change every week. So you may have a weekend off uh, a month, 1 or 2 weekends off a month. And then um, You're also working with these inmates and staff included. You have we had what we called trustees. So you had trustees that would, like on death row, we would have a general population inmate. He was not a death row inmate. He lived in general population, but he worked on that particular cell block. So he would come on that wing. He would help the COs feed the inmates, hand out trays, things of that nature, and then he would clean the cell block once we're done, and then they would leave that particular location. Um, and then yeah, we also had, like I said, the work capable inmates, and what they did was they made uniforms for the COs, for the correctional officers, and to get those out. Um, and not only when I say work with them, so they worked in a specific area. There was correctional officers in there, and then like I said, other inmates that I work with. I had some that I could trust to a certain degree, meaning general population inmates that came in there. Um, and like I said, here lately, over the years, and it started when I worked for the state, they started building these prisons that were like pods, so like big dormitory areas where when you walk in, it's just an open area. They got the beds, and then uh, area for showering, stuff like that. Um, Now you're probably wondering about the working there versus when it gets slow versus moments of crisis. It does get slow sometimes, as far as, besides the other duties that you have to do. It may not be like a whole lot going on, just a general day. And you just do your job, and that's pretty much it. Then you have moments of crisis when you have fights break out. And basically, at Ellis One, where I worked there, we were trained that, like I said, it was a telephone pole. So you got one end of the building and then the whole other being down there. And then you got cell blocks running off of it. Well, the way that it worked, if there was a fight, wherever the fight occurred, the CO is going to yell out fight. And when they yell out fight, the officers in the hallway, they're going to yell out fight. And then they're going to start closing and locking doors and isolate wherever the fight is. The reason for that is it's a safety reason, because that fight can be a deterrent for, let's just say, for sake of argument, a fight can break out in general population, and then as they start locking the door, that can be a deterrent, um, for not a deterrent, but that could be they can do that down there in general population. Then death row inmates can start doing something on our end to try to take over the unit, and vice versa. So, so that's the reason everything was put on lockdown. If somebody was to yell fight, we get that fight situated, get it stopped, separate the inmates. 9 times out of 10, they're going to solitary confinement. And then once that's done, then we open up the unit again, meaning because all the movement's going to stop. And then once we clear it, then we'll get movement going again. So it is some excitement there, if you want to call it that. I mean, so there are some things, because anybody can get hurt in that. So that's another thing. Um, so what are the challenges of working on the inside of a prison? Well, first and foremost, safety threats. I just kind of touched on that. You have safety threats. You have the fights, um, and then you got contraband. You have manipulation. Um, so I kind of touched on the fights, but it's not just inmate on inmate. Sometimes you had inmates attacking officers. So I don't want you to think that it's going to be peaches and cream and kumbaya all the time. And I can kind of touch on that if I don't forget, later on, as far as how you deal with the inmates, so that won't necessarily happen. Um, and so you got contraband, inmates getting contraband, and how they're getting it in, or whatever contraband. They may have a homemade weapon that they've, configured or whatever. And then you have not had, but you have correctional officers bringing stuff in, whether it be phones, whether it be stuff from the outside, drugs, things of that nature. So that does happen. That's where the manipulation comes in, because you have inmates starting to talk to these correctional officers, and they get taken in. The good thing for me, or one thing for me that helped me along the way, number one, personally, I wouldn't do that anyway because I'm not trying to be housed in a unit because some inmate. And then first and foremost, I had two brothers that worked in the prison system. One of my brothers worked in the federal prison system, and then my other brother, um, stepbrother, he was a assistant warden with the Texas Department of Corrections. And my brother that worked in the federal prison. He told me, hey, when you get there, just if they ask you for something, if they ask you to bring you something in, just tell them, hey, man, I ain't got nothing for you. I can't do it. And they'll leave you alone once they see that you're consistent with what you're saying. And in saying that, and let me put a footnote right there, besides the contraband and bringing stuff in, there have been instances where females have become emotionally and intimately involved with inmates on units. And I can think of two incidents at Ellis One when I was working there, where a female was impregnated by a inmate, and the other female, I found out that she was sleeping with the inmate, and she was the last person I thought would do that. So that comes with the manipulation still. So you have to have, if you decide to get in this type of profession, you have to have a strong mind as far as to resist what they are asking you to do. Have I been approached? Yes, I have. But I have been, some seeds have been planted in my mind, how to handle those situations. And so I had a guy that wanted me to bring something in. He had an outside contact, and he was telling me all the things, how we could do it and all this other stuff. I listened to him. I said, man, look, no, I ain't gonna do that. And then I had a friend that I worked with on death row. Um, and he was the last person I thought that would do this. But anyway, one day I came to work and he wasn't there. And he was on his way to work as well. But he was, from best I can recollect, was I think he was making a drop off or he was getting something to bring inside the unit. Well, they had been tipped off. I guess another inmate had said something to somebody, and it was basically a little sting operation. And they caught him. They caught him red-handed. Um, and so you have to be mindful of that stuff, and you have to. The best way that I can say, the best deterrent. Do you want to be an inmate? Do you want to be in the same unit where somebody manipulated you into bringing something in, whether it was a phone, drugs, or whatever? Do you want to be an inmate? Do you want to have an inmate number? That's probably one of the quickest ways to get to be an inmate, is to do something like that. It's not worth it. And you got to have a strong mind, to just, because they're going to listen. They have nothing but time, and they're thinking of ways to manipulate you, what to say, how to say it. And they're going to develop this so-called friendship, or just talking to you. You're thinking that that's your friend because they may be telling you some information. They may be telling you, hey, this is what's going on in the unit. This inmate has phones down there. This inmate has dope. This is the person that's bringing it in. And then when they kind of butter you up or get that somewhat trust, then you're going to think that, okay, this person's cool. And you'll never know what's going to happen. Then one day, you'll say, hey, man, can you bring this in for? It might be something small at first. Hey, I see you got a Coke over there. Can I have it? The rest of it or whatever. Then it can gradually build up to other things. So the best way to deal with that is, when it comes up, or just have that persona or that attitude, like, don't ask me that, just walk around. It's strictly business, just strictly business, that business face, that mindset face, and this, that, and the other. So basically, when I got out of the Army, that's kind of what helped me too, because I literally had just got out of the Army. And then plus, like I said, both of my brothers had kind of told me the same thing. And so I already knew that it was going to happen. It took a while before it did happen. I think I'd probably been there like 2 years before it happened, but I was confronted, and definitely told them no. Now, what is the culture in a prison, uh, and the morale in the prison. I can tell you right now, I can only, like I said, I can only speak for where I worked. Uh, the biggest thing with inmates is respect. It's the biggest thing with inmates. It's respect. You can't go in there. I don't want to say trying to intimidate them, but thinking that they are lower than you and they're going to do what you say, and and you have control over them. One thing I want you to understand is inmates can take over a unit anytime they want. So never think that. Inmates can take over a unit anytime they want. When I worked death row, I was the only CO working a cell block with about 50, 60 inmates. Like I said, it's a three-tier unit, well, a three-tier cell block. And there's, put it this way, when I was there was over 400 inmates on death row. So you do the math. Um, so you can, it's that old saying, firm but fair. Let them know, hey, no, I'm not the one to ask that type of question. I'm not bringing anything in. I don't have anything for you. And if they ask you now, on the flip side, if they ask you, say, something legitimate within the unit, say, hey, officer, normally they may call you boss. That's what they call the CO. They call us boss. Or they just call you by your last name. It's like, hey, Parker, hey, can you do such and such for me? Can you take me to the front? Can you find out this? I say, hey man, give me a second. I got to do A, B, C, and D, and once I finish that, I'll try to get to it. And then and I would do that. I would stick to my word once I'm doing what I'm doing, and because you're going to be humping there, for a little while. And once I finished doing what I was doing, I would go ask my sergeant to try to find out. And then once I got an answer, I'd go back and tell the inmate, hey, this is what I found out. Hey, it's in the works. So no, we can't do that. You need to send up some type of information if you're trying to talk to the warden or whatever it is you're trying to do. Fill it out, and I'll come back and get it, and I'll turn it in for you. And then you treat them with respect. That's the quickest way to get hurt in a prison, because if you don't treat them with respect, then they're going to remember that. Let's just say hypothetically, and I tell you that inmates can take over a prison anytime they want. So let's just say you're that person that is treating inmates bad. And we had old saying, we call it jugging at them. Don't jug at them, don't jug at them. And if you're doing that, guess what happens if they take over that unit and they see you? What do you think is going to happen? You know, you might get hurt is the problem. So my biggest thing was when I was in there, when I worked in there, I treated everybody with respect. If they asked me to do something, I'd check it out for them, come back and tell them what the outcome was. And then when they asked me to do something illegal or bring something in, no, man, I'm not gonna be able to do that. Um, uh, what else? Now, what about the officers themselves? Yes, I mean there is a close knit type brotherhood, sisterhood, because for 8 hours, the way I looked at it, for 8 hours, I'm incarcerated because I'm locked in on the cell block. I'm not in a cell, but I'm locked in that cell block with those inmates. And so, if something were to happen to an officer or whatever, everybody's coming to assist. Now, what you also have to think about, you don't have any weapons. I don't know if I don't think they changed that, but you don't have any weapons. You don't have mace. You don't have batons. You don't, because if inmate were to take that from you, guess what's going to happen? Then that can lead to other things. Now, do inmates have weapons? Yes. They got homemade weapons. So we shook down the cells, searched them if you want to. That's basically what we searched them. But we shook down the cells, tossed the mattresses and make sure there was nothing in there. And so and that's part of it as well. Um, what is the inmate officer dynamics? I think I kind of touched on that, as far as let me give you an example. When I was working death row, I was working. I never forgot. I was working the hallway this particular time uh, on the ag seg. section of death row. That's where the death row inmates were locked up 23 hours a day. They came out for 1 hour to rec. So I was working the hallway, and two officers was coming in to get an inmate, take him to the infirmary. And they was like, "Hey, Parker, we're going to get," and I forgot the guy's name. It's been years ago. They said, "Hey, we're going to get inmate such and such." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So, "Hey, man," said, "we're going to drop him when we come out here. You want in on it?" I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm not with that. If that's what y'all gonna do, hey, you do you. I'm not getting ready to do that." Basically, what that means is when they dropped him, they were going to make it seem like he did something or he made a sudden move because whenever a death row inmate moved, they were handcuffed when we took him out. And so they said, "Hey, we're going to drop him." I guess the one of the officers had an issue with him or whatever, on some other stuff. My thing was, number one, you're a coward for dropping a man and he's handcuffed. That was the first thing. If you got an issue with him and you trying to fight him or whatever, do something when he's not handcuffed. This guy has, you know, he's handcuffed. I mean, why are you going to drop him? You're going to say that he did something and then you're going to put him on the ground. So that incident happened. They did it because as they was walking down the hallway, they got close to the infirmary, and I hear them yell out, "Fight!" And I knew what they did. I already knew what they did because it was them. Well, hindsight's kind of 2020 because I think it was about a couple of months later. Um, I think the death row inmate had a friend or whatever you want to call it in general population. Well, this one of these particular officers, he was walking down the hall, and inmate went into his mouth, pulled out a razor, and cut that officer in the facial area. Didn't kill him. And when I found out about it, I was like, hopefully he'll stop. It's like I say, inmates have access to weapons. This guy pulled out a razor. He kept the razors in his mouth. They make homemade shanks. They hide them. They put tape around the end of them to act as a handle. So that's one thing you have to think about when you go in there and you want to do stuff like that. Just because you can yell fight and you're going to have several officers there pretty quick, that doesn't mean anything, in the big picture of stuff. Now, if you're kind of like me, I'm kind of goal oriented. And so any job I've been in, I was goal oriented. So I'm looking to promote. Same thing in the Army. When I got in the Army, I made sergeant within 18 months. I was in a combat MOS. When I got to the Texas Department of Corrections, my stepbrother, like I said, he was an assistant warden. He gave me study material to study for the sergeant's position. And I'm not going to lie, I was studying every day. Didn't know when the test was going to be, and one thing there, you can apply it different units. And when I say different units, I mean throughout the state of Texas. Well, I was trying to stay right there at Ellis One because I was still in school, wasn't trying to move. And most of these prison units are like way out in the boonies or where there's really nothing around and you got to drive so far to get to, civilian world type stuff. So I was told, "Hey, you're probably not going to make it here. You're going to have to go somewhere else, make sergeant, and this, that, and the other. After you make sergeant, you may come back as a lieutenant." I'm like, "Okay, no problem." So I was, like I said, I was going to school at Sam Houston State, and I had the material, the study material for the sergeant's exam. I was literally studying every day, every time, every chance I got. I was studying for the sergeant's test. And don't get me wrong, I did apply to some other units kind of close by the area, but I still wanted Ellis One. And so and then finally a position came open at Ellis One. And they kept telling me, "Park, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. They're going to get somebody from the outside." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." Well, I tested, and I was told I tested pretty good. Long story short, I made sergeant at Ellis One, and I'd been there about 2 years. So promotion was there, but I don't know if it's improved yet. Um, and if how positions open nowadays. But when I was there, it was you literally did have to move around to make rank. So once I made sergeant, if I want to make a lieutenant somewhere, if nothing wasn't coming open in the Huntsville area, I was gonna have to go somewhere else. I was gonna have to go to Houston, I was gonna have to go somewhere down south or out west, up north. So that was kind of like a downside to it for me anyway, because I wasn't really trying to move because I was in the army for 8 years. I was moving almost every 18 months. Um, so there's a promotional path working in corrections. You come in as a CO, you max out, meaning you got so many steps, you come in at a certain pay rate, and it's not that good, So it's improved a little bit, but not that great. So you max out as a correction officer. Then the next step will be sergeant. Then you have it's just like the military type rank. You got sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and I think they still have majors. Because when I was at, I think that rank came in as far as major, and then after major, you can be assistant warden, and then you can go to a warden. And so that's the kind of rank structure that they have. Um, if you have a degree, that's probably going to benefit you better than the next person. There were some people there that didn't have degrees, I should say. And if you have a degree, it can help you. Don't get me wrong, it can help you if this is what you're trying to do, especially if you're trying to make it to the position of warden. Um, you can also transfer to other agencies. And let me back up. You can transfer to other units. Let's just say you're a correction officer. And let's just say you do want to move around. You do want to go somewhere else. Let's just say if you're in Huntsville or you're somewhere way down south, and let's just say you're from Houston and they have units close to Houston in that particular area. So you can transfer to that particular unit as a correction officer. And then when you promote, if you're trying to promote and something comes up in Houston or if it comes up Amarillo, wherever, you can do that. Some people may want to do that just to promote quicker than others. Say, hey, I don't have a problem. Maybe you're single. Hey, I don't have a problem moving. I'll pack up and move and go and go down south, go to Houston, up north, and it's going to make you a better correction officer anyway, if you were to do that, because now you're seeing different units how they operate, and things of that nature. So, what advice do I have for new recruits or somebody's considering the correctional field? Well, actually, it's a good field. It's a good field. Um, if you're trying to just get into criminal justice, it's a side of that's a side of criminal justice. It's a side of the law enforcement side. Um, Now, this is just me personally. Now, I hadn't never got any negative feedback or when I was a correction officer, officers looking at me funny or this, that, and the other because I am a correction officer, not a police officer. I personally have never experienced that. Now, does it happen? I'm quite sure it does because you have officers that if you work for a particular department, they kind of frown upon you, look down on you, just depending on what department you work for. But it's a good starting point if you're looking to get into some type of law enforcement field or arena. And like I said, if you don't want to do the police side of it, that would be a good start. You can make warden and then you can branch off into other things within the state. You can become a director with the state of Texas or with whatever respective state that you live in. I'm quite sure they have director positions. So that's something that you can look at too. Now, I want to get a little more specific, and I'm almost done, guys. And I was trying to keep them short. I said I was going to try to shorten them, but so that was my goal to try to shorten them a little bit. But what I want to get into now, I know I've been talking about me working on death row as a correctional officer because that's the only thing I can speak of. When I made sergeant, now I did go to the joint population of Ellis One, and I still stayed at Ellis One, sergeant joint population. And let me back up before I get into that. Now, when I was on death row, I was part of what they call a forced cell extraction team. Basically, if you had an inmate that did not want to come out of his cell, then we would suit up, we would walk to wherever his cell was, kind of lock everything down, and then we would give them ample opportunity to come out. And then if they didn't want to come out, and we roll in that door, we're going to get them. So if you want to call that fun, I mean, it was kind of exciting, but it's always that thing in the back of my mind saying, man, I hope this dude don't have a shank, meaning like a knife type thing to where he's going to start stabbing us or something like that. So now let me get a little bit more specific to get a little bit more detail about my death row experience. Now I know they've moved death row. It's no longer on Ellis One. I think they moved into like a newer unit, so I don't even know where they have it now. Um, but like I said, I was on death row when it was at Ellis One. Now, so what was my first day on death row like? Well, when I finished, when I got out of the little 2 week academy, I got assigned to Ellis One. I get to Ellis One. I go through another, I think it was 2 week, probably 2 weeks worth of training on the unit itself. Working, I think we went down to death row and worked, for a shift, and then general population, just different areas. We worked the towers and all that good stuff. So when they were finishing up, when we were finishing up that 2 week training on Ellis One, and they started giving us our assignments, they said, "Hey, Parker, we're going to put you on death row because of your size." And I ain't no big guy. Okay, I'm not 6'4", 6'5". I'm maybe 6 foot even, and I just got out of the military, so I weigh like 185. When I got out of the military, and I'm like, because of my size, well, I roll with it. And to be honest with you, when they gave me my assignment, I was excited and a little nervous at the same time, because now I'm going to the unknown, because I have no idea what is going to happen, because you're working with the worst of the worst in society, basically, because you have people that have taken someone's life, and you have some that are taking multiple people's life, and then some of the heinous ways that they've done it. So that's what I'm looking at, or what's going through my mind. And looking back on it, they put me on nights initially. I think I was working 2P. I think it was 2P to 10P, if I'm not mistaken. No, I take that back. I was working nights. So I was working 10 to like 6 in the morning, something like that. And so when I went to my assignment, um, my first night on death row, now I'm assigned to death row. I think that was kind of good for me initially, because when I got there, pretty much everybody was asleep. You do have some inmates that'll stay up all night, and they may sleep during the day. And then you have some that just stay up. And so when I get there, pretty much all the lights are out. I mean, it's light where you can see, but for the most part, the lights are out. And so pretty much everybody sleep, so I'm just walking the runs, doing counts and things of that nature. And so my first day was nervous. I'm not gonna lie, it was nerve-wracking, because I didn't know what to expect. Um, I didn't know how the inmates was going to treat me. I didn't know if, what they were going to do. But my thing was, I'm going to treat these inmates like men. I'm going to respect them. And I can't, look at what they did. I know they've done something, because they're on death row. So I can't look at that as making them lower than what they are. They're still men on the unit. Just they went a different path in life. Um, the day to day on death row, we had most of the wings were, well, we had the one ad seg wing where the death row inmates were locked down for basically 23 hours, and they would get 1 hour of rec. They can deny rec if they want. Some say, "Hey, I just want to shower." You go take them to the shower, you take them back to their cell. And then we fed them. So I had a trustee in there with me. We would make the trays. They would bring the food in. We would make the trays. We would put them in a tray carrier. I would take them in the first row. Actually, we started on the third row, because that's a ways up. You go to the third row, you start handing out trays. You get to the second row, first row, until you're done. And then you take the food out, and then the trustee in there kind of cleans up and this, that, and the other. And you still got to watch the trustee, because you don't know if he may be giving them something or sneaking stuff in to the death row inmates. And then not only that, you got to watch and make sure the death row inmates does not do anything to the general population inmate, because they're not on death row. Now, when I know you hear me talk about the tiers, there was 3 tiers. And basically with that, you had the tiers, but we had this big old shield that could roll. And that wasn't for us. That was for when we take death row inmates out of the cell, and we're taking them to what we call court, taking them to court, taking them to the infirmary, or they're going outside of the unit, or they're going outside the cell block for a particular reason. So the way this thing was set up, the inmate would be um, behind the shield. Well, not behind the shield, but as we're walking, we're pushing the shield, and he's that inmate's walking there, and another CO is up front. There's a CO behind the CO up front, and the inmates in the middle. What that shield is for other inmates, because let's just say they got a problem. Somebody has a problem with this inmate, and they may try to stab it. Well, that's why the shield is there. Or they may try to throw bodily fluids on this inmate. And so that's why the shield is there, to shield the inmate from getting stabbed or getting bodily fluids thrown on them. Um, so we also had that in there. Now, I'm not going to lie. You have these correctional officers that mess with these inmates, and when they walk down the run, they pushing the shield with their shielded. And that's my thing. If you're man or woman enough to talk crazy to this inmate or tell them what you're going to do, and you cussing them out, walk without the shield. And then because they know those inmates are going to do something to retaliate against them. I mean, what do they have to lose? What do they have to lose? Um, now, that's the day to day. Now, what are and I'm not going to get into naming a whole lot of inmates. I'm going to name probably about 4 or 5 that just stick out, because all the ones and even the ones I'm going to name, they've probably been executed by now. And so, just to let you know what I was dealing with when I was working on death row. Um, and let me back up before I get into these names that I'm about to say, and give a little brief, not even a profile, but just briefly, who they are and what they did and this, that, and the other. Um, Another job that we had is working on death row. Of course, they're going to get an execution date. Well, they didn't execute them at Ellis One. They executed them at the Walls unit, which is downtown Huntsville. So I remember it was my turn to transport an inmate to the Walls unit to be executed. And that was the most quietest ride I've ever experienced in my life. Um, and that kind of got to me. And this is why. Uh, So we're driving this guy over to the Walls unit to be executed. And I think I'm more nervous for the guy. He didn't say anything. He wouldn't say anything to us, but I'm nervous for this guy too, because I'm sitting there thinking, man, this guy knows that he's getting ready to get executed. This is his last ride in a vehicle. This is his last time looking at scenery, trees, street, buildings, that we pass going to the Walls unit, you know, daylight, if it's dusk, evening time. This is the last time that this guy is gonna see this, witness this. And so what was going through my mind is, what is he thinking? What is he thinking? So that's another thing that we had. Now, um, here are some of the people that I dealt with on Texas Death Row. The person that came to mind was Kenneth Allen McDuff. Um, McDuff was a serial killer, and I think he's from Rosebud, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Kenneth Mount, he's a I think most of his murders were done in the 60s and the 70s. Now, here's what's I don't know if I can call it strange, but McDuff was paroled. I think he was convicted of capital murder. He was paroled um, off of death row, commit murder. So he gets out. Well, guess what he does again? He commits either another murder or some more murders, and he gets locked back up. Guys, I'm telling you, all you need is one taste of death row, and I would not want to come back because when I worked it, and like I said, it's like I'm incarcerated for 8 hours when I was working there. My thing is, if I being if him, I I would not want to come back. But he gets out, commits another murder too, however many he did, and he comes back to Texas death row. So when I got there, he was already back on Texas death row, and that was Kenneth Adam McDuff. Another high profile name that you guys may be aware of is Henry Lee Lucas. Um, I did a little research on Henry Lee because I kind of forgot. I know he's a serial killer. Lucas killed over hundreds of people. And I think he kind of confessed to some. So he's another guy. And then Gary Graham. I don't know if you guys know about Gary Graham. He was a guy out of Houston. I think he was convicted when he was 17 years old. He was convicted of a murder that he committed in Houston. And he had been on death row since he was 17. And then there's a gentleman by the name of Jamar Arnold. Arnold, I'm not sure where he's from. I think his murder that he committed, he was in Corpus Christi, and he did some time in California prison. Arnold and these two names, I'm just going to mention them real quick. Emerson Rudd, he's from the Dallas area. And then there's a guy named Andrews. Those three are going to be important here in a minute. And then there's another inmate by the name of Bonnie Delk that I dealt with on death row. Delk was Delk wasn't playing with a full deck. He had some mental issues. I don't know what they were, but he was the first person that I encountered that truly, truly, truly had mental issues. He wasn't all there. And I'll never forget, the time I was there. Delk normally he was like when you walk into the cell block, his cell was normally the last one on the first or second row. And it's probably, if I had to guess, probably at least 15 cells on one row, if not more. And like I said, Delk was the last cell, either on the first row or the second row. I think it was the first row. He pretty much stayed on the first row. So let's just say he was in cell 15, 18, or whatever. When you get to cell 10, you can smell Delk's cell block or where he lives. And let's just say Delk didn't shower, for a better lack of words. Delk was that inmate that would take his feces, rub it on him. His cell smelled like urine, basically. And he would be the one that if you did something to him, you're probably going to get urine and crap thrown on you. So he was the first person in life that I truly just dealt with that truly had mental issues. And from growing up, you think you may see somebody that you kind of know they're crazy, but they still functional. He was the one like, okay, yeah, this guy has problems. Now, I mentioned Jamar Arnold, Emerson Rudd, and this guy named Andrews. I'm going to end it with this particular story. It's true, but now, Jamar Arnold was another guy that was pretty scary. Arnold was a pretty big dude. Like I said, I'm 6 foot. He had to have been 6'1" or 6'2". Big guy, healthy guy. Arnold was the guy that probably would never. He was on the ad seg wing. He could not wreck with other death row inmates. So when he wrecked by himself. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. He could not recreate with any other death row inmates. Is how bad this guy was. And so I had been there probably going on 2.5, maybe 3 years. It's probably the 2.5 mark because I wasn't sergeant yet. So one day I come in, it's my Monday, and and I'm going on J Wing, and when I walk in, guess who's on the rec yard? Arnold. I turn around and walk out and ask the hall boss. I said, "Hey, do y'all know Arnold?" Because I thought somebody accidentally let him out to recreate. I say, "No, man, he's good to go. He was cleared by the warden to that he could rec with other death row inmates." I was like, "Man, this gonna be a problem. This gonna be a serious problem." I can't. I don't. The incident I'm about to tell you about, I don't know if it happened that day or a couple of days later. But anyway, so I kind of told you about Arnold and his brief background of he only wrecked by himself. Now they have him recreating with other death row inmates. So I want to back up to Emerson Rudd. Emerson Rudd was from the Dallas area. Andrews, I'm not sure where Andrews was from. Well, this is what happened. Uh, Andrews and Rudd were recreating probably a month or two before what I'm going to tell you happened. So they were on their cell block and they were in the day room. Well, Rudd he had a big mouth and he's always fighting. He was a young kid when he was on death row, probably between, I don't know, I think he got convicted when he was 19 or 20 something. When I was there, he was probably in his 20s. Well, I think, I don't think they were ABs, Aaron brothers, anything like that. But anyway, there was a white inmate out there recreating with Rudd and Andrews. This was way, way before this incident I'm about to tell you. Rudd got his butt whooped by this white guy. White guy putting them hands on him. Best way I can explain it, people that watched the Martin Lawrence show back in the day, in that episode with he had Hitman Hearns on there, and then toward the end of the show, it showed Martin. That's what Rudd face looked like. And Rudd was trying to do something or pick up something, and the guy Andrews, he kept the fight fair. Mind you, Andrews just beat an execution date. He was set to be executed. He took him to the Walls unit, and he got to stay. He got a stay of execution. So they brought him back. So now, let me get back to now, for whatever reason, Arnold is now recreating with death row inmates. Because like I say, they get an hour a day. So they got a day room and they got a little area where they can walk outside. And so I don't know if I don't know if it was that day when I walked on the wing that particular day, or if it was the day after. I can't remember the time frame when it was. So anyway, I'm like, I can see in the day room, and Andrews is in the day room. Arnold is in the day room. Rudd is in his cell I think he lived on the second row. So as I'm watching the day room, I see Arnold put his arm around Andrews. I didn't, I guess I'm thinking they know each other or they cool. And so, but they were in the day room, but they were walking toward to go outside to go recreate because it's still fenced in, but they were walking outside. So as I see, put his arm like on his shoulder, on Andrew's shoulders, they're walking together. So I'm just kind of watching it, just to like, okay, that's strange. Next thing I see is Arnold and inmates scatter. So I know Arnold is now stabbing him. And I yell, fight, as loud as I could. I yell, fight. I was like, hey, Arnold is stabbing Andrews. They just went outside. So now we have to get all the inmates in the day room out so we can deal with that situation. And as they get outside and we're getting inmates out and getting them to their cells, I hear this loud thud, boom, boom, boom. Mind you, they're outside, and I'll tell you what happened here in a minute. And so, and as a footnote, like I said, I'm a criminal justice major, and I always thought, what goes through somebody's mind, and what do they do after they kill someone? What do they do? It's just something that I thought is like, how do you just murder someone and he just walk away, or what is that person's demeanor like? For whatever reason, that just baffled me. It's like because I couldn't just fathom of hurting someone like that and killing them and taking someone's life. And so as we're getting them out, we're cuffing these guys quick as we can. It's all kind of correctional officer. Now we get them to their cells. We get them to their cells. So I see Arnold coming in the day room. And when I say those inmates in that day room, they went to their respective corners. They wanted no part of that. And so by this time, I have a Hispanic inmate, older Hispanic inmate in the in this little area, because basically when we it's like a cage. So that way, if once I'm searching them and getting ready to handcuff them, no other inmate can come in there because we have that thing locked down. So I'm dealing with the Hispanic inmate. So I see Arnold come in and he's walking in the day room. And my thing is, what is he getting ready to do? Is he going to attack another inmate? I don't know why he attacked that inmate. What is he getting ready to do? So the Hispanic inmate, me and him are talking. Say, hey man, just chill, be cool. I'm gonna get you out here quick as I can. Arnold walks up because the little cage area, there's a sink uh, over there. It's not in the cage, but it's on the outside. It's within the day room. Arnold walks to the sink, turns on the water, washes his hands. After he washes his hands, he dries them off. Mind you, he's not he is calm as a cucumber. He washes his hands. After he washes his hands, he dries them. Then he comes around to the where the cage is at, to where we have to. Oh, if we open it, he can come in the cage, and we have to say search him, and then handcuff him and get him to wherever he's going. So I forgot who was standing next to me, but they opened it and let him in into the caged area, and he locked it. Mind you, the older Hispanic male is standing there. Now they're both in the cage, and the Hispanic guy was looking at me with his eyes like, Parker, get me out of here. I said, hey Arnold, don't do nothing. He said, Parker, I'm good. I did what I needed to do. I said, okay, hang tight. So I need to get him out. Okay. So I cuffed him, boom, and we let him out. And then we shut the door back. I said, okay, Arnold, you need to strip. Pants off, get the whole nine as far as how you search an inmate on death row and to get him out. He put his clothes back on. I said, okay, Arnold, you should turn around. Once he turned around, he put his hands out of the area where the hands come out, and I cuffed him and got him out. And medical staff is waiting to go render aid to the gentleman that was just stabbed. So we get Arnold out. And I think we put him in another secure area on the cell block so we can immediately get them in. So we got him out, got the medical staff in. They go out there, and he's deceased. And I think the nurse said, hey, we need to start CPR. I'm sitting there thinking, no need to start CPR. So he put him on a gurney, get him on a gurney, get him out of there, and taking him to the infirmary. And so we were, I think by this time, I think no, they by this time they got Arnold out of the cell block area and was taking him down the hall because I was with the crew that was pushing Andrews to the infirmary. And so as we're pushing him to the infirmary, um, mind you, a shank is in his head here. So after stabbing him here, he stabbed him in the head. And as we're going down the hall, there's a cell, there's like cell blocks there, not cell blocks, but where it can be locked and we'll be in a secure area. So Arnold was almost to that area where you could close that door and it's just death row. I said, hey guys, get Arnold out of the way. Get him more to the side because I don't know what he's going to do when Andrews, when we roll him by him. And guys, we got closer to Arnold. And when I tell you, Arnold was smiling as we were rolling him by. If I'm not mistaken, I think he spat. And I had never seen, I mean, most people would be nervous or shaking or something or whatever after you just murdered someone. I mean, he was just looking and smiling. And we got him to the infirmary. We already knew what was going on. He was already deceased. Well, it was taking Arnold to the the to solitary. Um, so they got him down there. And now let me back up. Remember when I told you when Arnold was when he was walking him out, he started stabbing him like here in the area. I didn't know he had stabbed him in the temple of here. I didn't know he had stabbed him there. Well, when he got him outside, I told you Arnold's a big dude. Andrews is no small guy. The thud I was hearing, Arnold had grabbed him by his feet and was slamming his head against a concrete wall, brick wall, to drive the shank further into his skull. And what he did after that, he picked him up and put him over his head. He put Andrews up like this. And he said, Rudd, this is for you. Rudd, this is for you. What that was a hit. That was a hit because Andrews kept that fight that Rudd had a month or two before. He was keeping the fight fair. Well, Rudd got his butt whooped. And so somehow he solicited Arnold into killing Andrews. I don't know what he promised him. Don't know what he gave him. But that's what that was for Andrews keeping a fight fair. And mind you, this guy had just had a stay of execution, not that within a couple of weeks before this happened. And then so the state didn't execute him, and the inmate killed him. So there are some dangers in working in the prison system. The best thing I can tell you, I can't promise you that even though you treat inmates with respect and you do everything that you're supposed to do, and you're firm but you're fair, can't promise you that that's going to keep you out of harm's way. But it'll sure go a long way because they knew that I was firm, but I was fair in what I did there at within the prison system. And just like myself, I had a hit put out on me. Me and a good friend of mine, Jacoby Garman, a Mexican mafia guy, made it to the work capable wings, and he got into a fight. I was working the hallway, and for whatever reason, he got into a fight. But he said that me and Garman beat him up. And like I said, I just got out of the military. He said I stomped him in the head or stomped him in his body with my jump boots. That by no means happened. And we came back to work the next day, and And actually, another inmate told me, um, and this is what I'm saying. This is what goes when you treat people with respect. I was walking to the, I was on my Monday because I was started on what we call the J wing, where the ADSEG death row inmates were. So when I get there, I'm doing my rounds, my initial rounds. So I get up to the third row. As I'm walking the third row, I forgot the inmate. I forgot the inmate's name, but um, he lived like in the middle or toward the end of the run. And so as I'm walking the run, and he was like, say, "Hey, Parker." So I kind of looked back, say, "Hey, man, what's up?" And he said, "Man, I need hollage." I said, "Well, hold on a sec. Let me go back there and then finish my run. And finish my walk down here and I'll come back." So I do that and I come back to his cell. I say, "Hey, what's up, man?" So he's not standing right up on the bars. He's kind of standing in the middle of the cell. So it kind of caught my attention because, okay, is he getting ready to throw something on me? Because I've never had a problem with him. He was cool. In my book, he was cool. And I said, okay, is this dude getting ready to throw something on me or what? 'Cause he was literally standing in the middle of the cell. So he said, and he started whispering. He said, "Hey, man, I know what happened um, the other day with this guy." I said, "Man, nothing." I said, "Nothing happened." He said, "Man, that's not what the word is." He said, "Be careful." He said, the MMs, Mexican Mafia, he said, they got a hit on you and Garmin. And I was like, okay. And, I chalked it up to the game. It's like, it's part of the job. And at first I thought he was kind of lying because I kind of take everything an inmate say with a grain of salt because I had just walked by most of the Mexican Mafia on that particular wing. Some spoke, some didn't. I wasn't thinking nothing of it. But anyway, I think me and Jacoby got pulled into our supervisor's office, Sergeant Page. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to take you guys off of J Wing." "For what?" He said, "Man, you guys got a hit." And it's like, okay, that confirmed it. It's true. And both of us said, "No, so I don't want to do that because we can't show fear or we can't do this." I forgot what I told him. He said, "No, it's not that." He said, "We have to take precaution because we don't know what these guys will do." So I think they kept us off of J Wing for about, I don't know, a couple weeks, a month or so like that. And then that incident kind of died down, but what they were saying were lies. So you have your, things that you do have to worry about, a lot of stuff you can't control as a police officer or as a correctional officer. So wasn't trying to hold you guys long, but I think I went at an hour again. Not too bad. But so I just kind of want to stop right here. But if you actually are trying to go in this profession, it's a good profession to go into. And if you're kind of young or whatever, and you're trying to start your career in criminal justice, be a good start for you. You may like it, you may stay. But like I said, I don't want to keep you guys long. I just want to come do something a little bit different other than just the police side of it. So I want to bring the corrections in inside the walls, and then my experience on Texas death row. Now, if you like this episode, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with your thoughts. And I want to thank you for watching Life Inside the Walls, my death row experience.